Guys, I would really love to talk about my favorite Dragon Empire deck from 2024 that gets rid of rearguards. Eugene. Oh, no. I meant Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion. No, I meant Vajula. I meant Vaga. No. Listen to me. Shut up. I am talking about the award-winning Dragon Empire deck, Triumph Dragon. What? Sorry? Welcome home. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. 4 here. Today I am back to cover Gandiva in DivineZ, and this video has been a very long time coming. I used to be a Gandiva fan when the deck was announced, and then when the deck became tier 0 hyper meta in 2023, I sold the deck immediately because I wanted nothing to do with this deck. However, after the ban list and me not only killing 3 Gandivas in a row at the WGP, the deck is now dead. The deck completely vanished for the whole parts of the end of 2023 and for a good part of 2024. In 2024, we did get some of the support. They did cross over with Eugene, specifically, for example, Dickham, if you remember him. And then after that, in DZ BTO 6, to congratulate me for losing my deck slots for Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, they decided to give him a mask up for Gandiva Masques. Now, I want to talk about this deck in a more deep way because I feel like a lot of people talk about this deck are not talking about it correctly. I feel that there's a lot of emotion when it comes to this guy, and I understand because this guy almost slaughtered standard, like, to be honest, and now he's just like tier 12, right? But with Gandiva Masques, and the thing is that the deck has changed so fundamentally, I am strongly of the opinion that you need to actually change your mindset before playing this deck. I think personally that the way you build this deck needs to be very different from what you used to remember about Gandiva. So let me spend quite a fair bit of time talking about the deck in abstract, and then after that I will do the deck profile. Okay, I promise you this is a deck discussion, explanatory video, deck profile, everything. I'm going to do everything in one because I feel that a lot of people are getting points wrong about this guy online, not just the Japanese players, English as well, from what I read from the overseas audience. You guys don't actually know what this stuff does, and it's kind of sad. I'm not saying this is another tier 0 hyper threat you need to remember, but I do feel that this deck is getting ragged on a lot, and for points that are even incorrect. So let's start with that. I want to talk first about what this deck used to be. So for those of you who know what Gandiva used to be, Gandiva used to be just around the original Gandiva, and he gains 2000 power for each one of the bind zone face down cards, which you accumulate every time your opponent retires a card, or if they don't, your skills will give them back to you, right? So generally it's no problem, and he gets a crit if you have 5 or more gauge. They used to have this really annoying guy called Striguna back in DBD10. Basically he turbos this effect, so you could swing to your opponent's Vanguard for 23k, 2 crits, right? And that's to an opponent's 10k Vanguard. That skill was really broken, not to mention the draw skill was pretty nice. You get a draw 1 and a board nuke. CB1 board nuke, by the way, that is virtually undefeated. Like, there, even if you pull out all my old Dragonic Blade Master videos from freaking 2016, 2018, 2020, 2023, nobody has the same amount of retire as Gandiva, right? And historically that will not change, but the format of Standard has evolved since then, right? We have a lot more protection effects like Best in Accord, Vylord, we have a lot more evasion now, like Raziel, Vaga, Snipe Rose, even stuff like that. And the format is no longer where it used to be. Gandiva used to have this card as well called Best Harvest, which is the Eugene spell that lets him draw a card every time you retire a rearguard, right? And because back then bots couldn't evade, for example with Lista, you generally got a card that said CB1 draw 6, and that is really degenerate. But the thing is that is no more. Gandiva now, in current day, is stuck between a rock and a hard place. A lot of the things he wants to do in the past is either no longer available to him, or it is too bricky and too slow to use. For example, Best Harvest only works when your opponent has rearguards. If they do not have rearguards, it is completely useless. The thing does nothing, right? Not to mention, with Gandiva Masques, Ash Gandiva, you are playing the Mask package, which a lot of people back in 2023 would attribute it to a very bricky engine, right? You have to play copies of the Mask of Hidegrim. You have to play extra copies of the original Ghandeva. You obviously have to play Ghandeva Ash. right? You also have to tag in all your other stuff like your annoying Dragon Tree Wretches, all your markers, and so on and so forth. So it makes complete sense that people believe that this deck is unplayable, right? You think of all the old cards you used to play, Bravaldin, Bass Harvest, Shriguna, and you have a whopping 20 plus grade trees you need to fit in this deck. It is impossible. I've seen people put lists together, I've seen people try. It is not possible. It is not possible to marry the old and the new. It cannot be done. Physically, it cannot be done. The original Gandiva, for its strengths, also had a lot of bricks, which is why decks like my Blonezzel could slaughter it very easily because he had very bad hand ratio in terms of the amount of shield, because he's carrying a lot of great trees. At the same time though, putting an engine like the Masques in its entirety ensures that you don't actually have enough hand anymore, because you have even more great trees added that you need to see at specific times. The thing about Masques units is that while they are very powerful and can give you a good going second matchup, like Gram Grey Seek, the problem is, unlike Gram Grey Seek, they have no way to work themselves out of the bricks, right? If you brick, you die. You need to see certain things to win, and you need to see certain things continually to play. So, what are the changes in structure that I recommend in terms of how you can not only change your mindset but how you build the deck? First and foremost, I think we need to lay some ground rules. We need to move away from how the original Gandiva played. No more Shriguna, no more Best Harvest, no more Bravaldin. Why is that? Bravaldin is useless because all he does in the deck is just ensure you get the board nuke if you have rear guards. Best Harvest is useless because he only draws if your opponent has rear guards. If you take a look at the top 10 decks in Standard right now, today, you notice too many of them have evasion or removal or don't even have rear guards. Varga, Rezael, Levidras, so on and so forth. It is impossible for you to actually benefit of Best Harvest today. I could be completely wrong by the time this video comes out. Maybe Vaser is already best in format. But I want to say that at this point of recording in DivineZ BTO6, you do not have a way to actually get the full Best Harvest effect. Shriguna at 1 copy is also virtually useless because he is supposed to be played at 4 to ensure that your Gandiva can be quick and disgusting to deal a fast and swift death. Now, with only 1 Shriguna, it is impossible to do so, and it is not worth the Soul Blast just for that 1 extra gauge. That being said though, Gandiva Masques offers a much more sinister alternative. The thing about Gandiva Masques is that the way it's phrased, the way it's written, actually encourages you to play away from the old Gandiva style, which again, a lot of people I do not see talking about. So now that I've gone through all that out of the way, I want to talk about the deck profile and then to discuss it. So thank you if you guys have stayed on this long through this period. I will explain each of the cards in depth still in the quick deck profile. So let's get right to it, shall we? So we are going to start off with the right deck. Our right deck, we start off with Desert Gunner, but the reason why we start off with him is because we want people to think this is the Eugene deck, but obviously it's not. Again, links in the description below for the previous Eugene video. I really would like more people to check out the video because I spent a lot of work on that one. Dropping off another cameo, here's Vajula. The reason why we play Vajula is because the grade 1 for Gandiva's right line is also conditional, right? It gives you a free ride if your opponent has less rear guards, but if your opponent has more, you still have to discard a card from your hand. This is, in my opinion, completely unacceptable. Using Vajula's powers, he's a generic, you can actually pay the cost for a ride by using a Soul Blast instead. And while Soul is pretty important to Gandiva, you actually want cards in the drop zone so you can turn them into gauge for the bind zone later on. So again, this serves two purposes to not only conserve your hand against all matchups, it also gives you drop zone for the first turn. Okay, so again, very important card to understand. Depana is still in this list because he is basically giving the Great Tree Gandiva a free act ability by minusing his cost by 1 CB. It doesn't help you plus, it doesn't really do anything beyond that, but the CB cost is very important, and it ensures Ghandeva cannot be CB denied. So even in modern day, absolutely you have to play that partner. Okay, I know some people are trying Vajula, they're trying the soup right line, they're trying everything they can. Stop. This skill is way more impactful than you think, and let me explain. The original Ghandeva as God intended. The first skill is when your opponent's rear guard is retired, choose one of the cards from your drop zone and bind it face down as face down. The second skill is for each one of your cards face down in the bind zone, your front row gains 2000 power. If you have 5 or more, this guy gets a crit. So generally, the magic number you want to hit is 5. But this is for the old way you play Gandiva. Okay, I will get to him later. The third skill is the X skill that I mentioned previously. It's once per turn. Counterblast 1. Choose up to 5 of your opponent's rear guards with different grades, right? You can select them, right? And then after that, you look at the top 5 cards in your deck. For each one of the grades revealed that is the same as your opponent's rear guards, you can retire them. And then the rest obviously don't get retired. You shuffle the deck afterwards. And then if your opponent only retired one or less rear guards, you can draw a card and bind an additional card face down from your drop zone. If you've never fought Gandiva before, none of this makes sense, but I'm assuming you have, so hopefully that did make some sense. The whole point for the third skill, the X skill, is you counterblast 1. Ideally, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, or less, to get a draw 1 or 2, and then you bind 1 face down. And bind 2 face, you draw 1 and then you bind 2 face down, my bad. So, again, on face value, it's not bad. A CB1 draw 1, if you manage to time the control correctly, is absolutely wonderful. And you also get to accumulate bind face down, which helps your opponent feel pain, because you're getting 2k for every card face down in the bind zone. It is an infinitely scaling deck. Again, this is a deck that can get numbers as high as the crest, which is why historically Gandiva was a huge threat to Chrono Jet Dragon back in 2023. So, what does Gandiva Masques bring to the table? Let's talk about that in the Grade 3 segment. Our Grade 3 segment, we play 4 copies of the original Gandiva with 1 in the right deck. This is absolutely required because you want to remove the original Gandiva for your Mask skill. Again, if Masques is a new concept to you, welcome, but generally you need to actually remove copies of it. We're playing 2 Masks of Hydrogram, and then we're playing 4 Gandiva Masques. That's it. I want to play Dragon Empire like Dragon Empire. We are going to follow the standards set by our ancestors. We're going to play it straight. No more piling this deck with tons of stupid grade 3s, okay? You want to go and die? Help yourself. Speaking of someone who has a death wish, actually, we're going to start off with Gandiva Masques. Gandiva Masques, in lore, took up the Masques because he's looking for a battlefield to die on. He wants to turn himself into ash, and that's why he's turned, into this color. That is the whole point. Again, really fun, just read his flavor text. Now, Gandiva Masques has a whopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has a whopping 5 skills, right? But a lot of them aren't actually skills. They're just copy and paste from, the original Gandiva. So, putting them side by side will help you understand, especially if you happen to read Japanese, which I doubt because this is an English video. But if not, I'll still go through them for you. He remains the original skill, which is he cannot write over any other unit other than a unit with Gandiva in his name. So you cannot put this in the right deck. You have to go into the original and then mask up. Okay, so that's the first skill. The second skill is exactly the same as the original, which is you can bind cards with the drop zone face down every time your opponent's rear guard is retired. Again, exactly the same thing. He also maintains the exact same skill as the con skill, which is that your opponent, for each one of the cards face down in your bind zone, your front row gains 2000 power. However, he does not get the skill to get a crit at 5 or more. So it is purely just the bind skill for the sake of the bind skill, but he loses the critical effect at 5 or more. Seems bad, right? Well, I want to cover his last X skill first, which is you Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If not, you draw a card. Now, this is the most deceptive line of text on Gandiva Masques. You get a Soul Blast 1 Snipe 1, which is by far the cheapest snipe I've seen anyone do, right? Why is this skill even there? I don't know. But the thing is that, as what I mentioned before in previous Mask videos, having a mask engine actually gives you a lot of soul in a very weird way, because when you mask up, you actually move a Mask of Hydrogram from your drop into the soul. So you actually have more than enough ways to Soul Blast out your grade 3s in question so that you can reuse them, and then by using those Soul Blast costs, you get additional retires or draws. The only downside is that if you use it to draw a card, right, you don't actually get the compensation effect of a gauge. You only get the draw. So the smart way to do it is to prioritize this for the retire and then use his final skill even when the board is empty. Why do I say this? Here's why. You can remove a card from your hand, soul, or drop that has Gandiva in its different original card name, and this unit gains the activated ability of that unit for free. And this unit gets +1 critical. What does that mean though? Remember this skill that I mentioned previously, the one that chooses the rear guards, retire, draw, bind one, draw one. This skill can be used for free and with +1 critical as long as you just remove the original Gandiva. That means in your deck, you have upwards to a total of 4 free activations of Gandiva, and of course, if you are smart, you play their partner, that means 5. Let that sink in. You get to use this skill 5 times a game total for free. And I know what some of you are saying, Ames, you won't live that long. That is not true. With the amount of draw Gandiva himself gives you, with the mask, if you go second with a persona, right, and even if you do not, you can draw 1 time per skill, which is accumulative to a total of 5 draws per game. That is insane. And we didn't even play the best harvest variant. This is the variant that can draw even without opponent's rear guards, right? When your opponent has no rear guards, you draw engage instead rather than retire engage, correct? That being said though, you can actually shoot down all your opponent's rear guards, or if you're playing into a meta like Levidras where they do not have much rear guards, you actually get to draw more, and it is very, very important. So on top of Gandiva masks, with the Mask of Hidrogram, I won't explain this one. Just check the links description below for my previous Dragon Tree video for this set as well, so that we don't waste time. Basically, what this means now is that going second, right, you get the +10k front row, the additional the gauge skill. Traditionally, you get about 3 gauge per turn, so that's about +6k, and your Vanguard gets the crit, right? So your Vanguard can attack them now for 29k to crit at worst case scenario. That is the worst case scenario. That's really good. But if you're wondering, what about going first, right? We know that Striguna is what helped Gandiva enable his go first degeneracy with a +1 crit. Well, even if you do not have Striguna and do not have 5 gauge, by just removing a Gandiva, which you can by masking up going first, you actually can still attack for at least about 19k to crit, which is still not that bad considering Majesty Law attacks for 15k to crit, and people think he's a good deck. Well, but the point is that the crit pressure is no longer tied to the gauge. The crit pressure can be achieved as long as you just play the deck correctly. And that is a huge plus point because, it's a crit, right? Your opponent could actually counterplay Gandiva by just, making sure he doesn't have that many cards to ensure he can gauge up to 5, and then he generally just cannot get a crit early. Now he can do that no matter what. He just needs to coherently go up to the mask unit and just burn off an old Gandiva, and he gets all the skills back. Yep, it is actually that good. But again, I will talk about the deck in its entirety at the conclusion, but I just want to talk about the skills here, right? So moving on to our grade 2s, and this is where the video will get a lot quicker. We play one Depana in the right deck, we play 4 copies of Alphaka, and then we play 4 copies of Dickum, 4 copies of Bolt Blamer, and 4 copies of the new Dragon Tree Wretch, and 1 copy of Unite the Sky. Where we got rid of our grade 3s, we added in a lot of grade 2s, and these grade 2s are worth it. Unite the Sky, I will put link in the description for my previous Whackiest Piece Explain video. The reason why Unite the Sky is really good in this deck is because a lot of times you burn through your Gandiva and Gandiva masks very often through your drop zone. You soul blast them out, search them, draw them out, and you will have a lot of them extra, and you can actually use Unite the Sky for additional defense for just a counter blast or energy blast. Usually you use energy, but if you're extra counter blast, you can use the counter blast as well. Also, because of the fact that you actually have turns where you will write back into the original Gandiva and then mask up and then remove it and then mask up again, you will just have plenty of them lying around. Like, you will have enough opportunities where your Vanguard will be Gandiva mask and you'll have at least 1 to 2 more in the drop zone, so you can burn them off for the draw. So please consider Unite the Sky as the Whackiest piece for Gandiva. It is actually really good. We've talked about the partner before, so I won't spend time on him. This guy is the new Dragon Tree Wretch from DZBTO6. Him and his Cata Sanctuary counterpart are insanely strong for Master decks. And I've talked about this card in great detail for my Dragon Tree video, link in the description below. I won't go into it in great detail. Just know that with this one card, you are able to search out both the mask unit and the mask itself for very low cost. So for basically just one copy of him, you get your entire gameplay setup. So this is definitely a card you hard mulligan for to ensure you can open into this guy, because he is just an enabler for the entire deck completely. And he's an early grade 2 beater, and even the extra copies you can just, use them as beaters. Speaking of someone that you use as beaters is Bolt Blamer. Bolt Blamer is the only Gandiva support from traditional times that actually can be used on turn 2, which is why I was incredibly surprised that nobody, and I mean nobody, uses this, right? I understand it uses a counterblast, it's basically a more expensive Brachio Force, but it does gain 5,000 power, draws, engages, and retires. This guy really saves Ghandeva in the early game matchup, and this is going to be more and more important as you play against stuff like Drajul, Leonon, Youthberg, stuff that has traditionally strong early games. You are going to need this, and I really enjoy playing Bolt Blamer. He's not a must. He's not a card you need to see in the game, but like when you see him, he is pretty fun. The only problem is that Bolt Blamer is a net 0, so if Ghandeva gets more early game support, he's definitely the one that gets thrown out. But for now, I definitely consider him good enough. He's definitely better than Brachio Force because at least this guy can gauge. Dickum I've also talked about in great detail in my Eugene video, links in the description. Basically the exact same skill you just remember in the Eugene video, you just copy and paste it here. The reason why Dickum is played as a 4-off, even though his cost is very expensive to Soul Blast 1 and EB3, is that on your solo turns with Gandiva Masques, even going first, you actually can get the Dickum restand, and the restand will be pretty deadly because not only does he get the gauge number, he can also get additional power from either your Force Persona Right or even just your Dragon Tree markers that you left behind, thanks to your Wretches. So again, this guy as a solo attacker, and a draw mind you, is actually pretty important, so do play him. And it is for the exact same reason that I will tell you to play 4 copies of El Fakar. El Fakar is the original multi-attack of Ghandeva, and basically he's just the same thing. Again, he is only applicable going second, but even if you go first, you can just hack him in your hand for a turn, and on your Persona Right turns, he is much more deadlier. Much more deadlier. Our grade 1s, we obviously play this guy, 4 off, and then we play 4 Perfect Guards. Very simple. Play 4 Perfect Guards, you want to stay alive. Do not play the Regalis piece. Do not play the Sanctitude, because your hand in Ghandeva is still pretty bad, somewhat, even if you draw a lot, that you will prefer to have this as 4 Perfect Guards, and then you use your Unite the Sky no matter what. You can play Sanctitude if your meta is very filled with Night Rose and Harry, but if you're already fighting Night Rose and Harry, I guarantee you it's virtually a win. Last but not least, we also have 4 copies of this guy. This is your DZ BTO5 Ghandeva support. He is the latest, and he's actually pretty good. He's the same set as Eugene actually. So his skill is when placed on the Vanguard circle, if your Vanguard has the Scarlet Flame keyword, which it does, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose a grade 3 that is not Regalis piece from among them, add it to your hand, and if you do shuffle the deck, choose 1 card from your hand and bind it face down. So not only does he also help you net 0 bind face down, he also helps you scan out for your grade 3s, which is very important given that, the bane and boon of this deck is all its grade 3s. So this guy is absolutely a 4-off in the deck. Why they printed a Shriguna Searcher now makes sense, because most of this deck's key pieces are all grade 3. But he actually has a very strong second effect as well that triggers in with both our friends Dickum and El Fakar, right? So the skill is that when your rearguard in the same column as this unit stands or is placed during the battle phase, if you have a Vanguard of Ghandeva in its card name, you can stand this card. And if you do, at the end of the turn, this unit moves into the soul. He's not only generating soul for you now, even at a net -1, he's also a Frog Raider on top of a Searcher. And that's really good. Again, this guy is definitely a 4-off. You don't need to hard mulligan him, but he helps you in the consistency and the beatdown so that going first or going second, your multi-attackers are very strong. And then, of course, our trigger lineup is very intuitive. 8 crits, we want to kill people. 3 draws, this deck really needs draws and pieces. 4 heals, 1 drop Veda, very simple. And of course, these 2, as you know. So, the question is, what do I think about Ghandeva Mask as a whole? Do I think this deck has what it takes to stand up right now, or is he still irrelevant? I think that, once you revise the list of Gandiva masks, and once you really ask yourself why do you play certain things in Gandiva mask and adapt to the current meta, I think this deck is actually really strong. This deck has insane scaling potential, a lot of retire skill, a healthy amount of draw, which is not contingent on the opponent by the way, and you still get high numbers and a crit. Really, I cannot ask for anything more in a deck. I think this is really good. Gandiva Mask was able to somehow remove all the annoying aspects of Gandiva, but at the same time offer it an alternative that is still fair, right? You don't feel like you're playing Striguna Turbo anymore. You don't feel like Best Harvest is super annoying anymore. You just don't do that. Not only because those same strengths are the weaknesses that murdered Gandiva, but also because you now have completely new ways to play it. Especially, as I mentioned in the original Dragon Tree video, the new Wretches really breathe life to mask decks like none before. Honestly, these guys are insane pieces of support. You absolutely need to reevaluate all your mask decks in the context of these Wretches. And Gandiva being one of the first to be able to abuse it, I'm really glad. I'm really grateful that this is the support it got. Do I wish the deck got more? Yeah, but to be honest, we already have the new Barsagra as a very, very strong Dragon Empire deck. And as time goes on, everyone is still going to supplant Ghandeva. Eugene will eventually find a way to beat Ghandeva, hopefully. Vermilion will hopefully one day solve its brickiness problems. And I just don't know what they're going to do with this deck. I know some people are saying, oh, eventually it'll lose the mask. But I ask myself, do I want Ghandeva to lose this mask? I'm actually not sure myself. Overall, if you are a fan of Ghandeva, I think this support is very hard to swallow. I think this is the first time I'll say on the channel. It is actually a support wave that you really have to come to terms with mentally, but it is actually pretty rewarding when you get to know him. I think on first impressions, this deck definitely seems like it died. Definitely it seems like it's really bad. But if you really just retest the support and cut out all the old ways of playing Ghandeva, I think the new modern ways of playing Ghandeva is still alright. Is this going to be a tier 0 hyper threat again? No, your days are over. But is this still a deck you can definitely clear locals with or even a small level tournament? I think it definitely has a chance. But again, of course, that depends on the March ban list. Please, Kidani, ban Levidras, please ban Odium, please ban Varga, please ban Love and Berry, please ban Rezael. I am begging you, I am tired of playing against Levidras. Top 7, haha, Levidras. Please, stop it. But that is really all I can say. This formally ends DZBTO6. I know I've said for the longest time that, oh, this is my last DZBTO6 video, but every time I want to end, someone says, hey, can you please do another DZBTO6 video? Okay, this is the last, because there is literally nothing else I can cover in the set. Every triple rare I've talked about, every valuable double rare I've talked about. This is it. This is definitely the first set in my entire life as a Vanguard player that I have like 100% completion rate on this set, and it is very tiring. I'm gonna be honest, it is very tiring. I don't see myself covering a lot of DZBTO 7, either because of financial reasons or time, but I will try to still cover 1 to 2 decks here and there, especially the ones that I feel are worth talking about. I will try and still do Unica. I'm saving very desperately for that one. But yeah, we will see about that. Thank you everyone for those of you who have supported me so far. Thank you to the guy who actually rented me this deck. I'm very, very grateful to you for letting me borrow and edit your deck so that I could, try this deck myself and test it and then review it. Thank you to everyone who's, been nice to me for the past, 6 sets-ish. 7 sets. Thank you to everyone who's also really nice to me at tournaments and online and talk to me. Some of you are really pleasant. It's really heartwarming to talk to you guys sometimes, And of course, thank you to my teammates, thank you to my family and friends, and thank you to all my new subscribers, especially, and my three channel members. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys for helping me afford this set. But yeah, honestly, like it is nice to be grateful for the things you have, and I am thoroughly grateful. I know most people don't even get a chance to do stuff like this, and I really am glad. And it is decks like Gandiva that really motivate me to come back and talk, because really I feel that a lot of times people do not really read or go through these decks thoroughly before they properly evaluate it. I'm not saying I'm the authority on decks now. Hell no, I'm not a content creator like the people on Twitter, but I definitely do think that it is at least worth testing the deck before you talk about the deck, rather than you just talk about the deck from your bum. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Take care.